Which clear heads are better, the Evans G1s or the Remo Ambassadors? Let's listen to the true difference in sound on these heads on the Toms and look at how the difference in the build of the heads affect the tuning. First up, the similarities. Both heads are single ply 10 mil. They aren't coated, as I mentioned, so that means that they should both have a brighter sound to them. In fact, both manufacturers use similar terms here. Remo says that the heads are bright and open, and Evans says that the heads are open and are further up on the brightness scale. One really important difference here, though, is the size of the drum head, or really the size and shape of the collar on the drum head. For those familiar with Remo, you'll know that the heads sometimes fit kind of tight on a shell. I find this is especially true on my new DWs. This means that Remos actually require a bit of a break-in period. Put the head on, make it really tight, let the head stretch for a while. Replacing a head is not a thing that just takes some time, but actually requires a bit of downtime where you can't use the drum. The Evans heads are shaped different. For example, Evans touts that their collar is steeper. The difference is actually quite noticeable. I can take a brand new head, just place it on the bearing edge, and the collar is already outside of the shell. There's no need to apply any tension at all to get the head fully down. Another difference is the total heights on the heads are different. You'll notice that the Remo head seems to sit a little bit taller than the Evans. The result of all these differences is that I find the Evans heads to be much quicker to tune. Once I have all the lugs such that they're not loose, the number of turns it takes to get it up to pitch is far less than with the Remos. Even more important is that I find there's far less rippling that occurs when you're trying to get the head up. Now, of course, there has to be a downside to all this, right? The Remos are really tight on the shell. They could damage the shell if you're not careful. Well, the Evans, being a little bit bigger, that makes them tight against the rim. On one drum, I took the rim off and the head was actually stuck inside the rim and I had to hit the head to pop it out. So generally, I find the Evans heads easier to work with, but what about their sound? Well, let's test this on my DW Collector's Kit. These tom shells are all cherry mahogany, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. They're all going to be mic'd on top with small diaphragm condensers. The 16-inch tom is also going to be mic'd underneath with a Sennheiser MD421. All 6 of those tracks are going to be running through API preamps and no other outboard gear. Once in the computer, the only processing is going to be some gating and cleaning up the tracks, just to make it easier for you to hear the individual tones. There's not going to be any compression or EQ inside the computer on those tracks, but my other tracks, like my snare, will have additional processing. So my first impressions, the Remos, I felt they sounded actually a little bit more open, that maybe they had a little more overtones. The overtones were ringing out longer. The flip side is that you could say the Evans had a more controlled sound to them. So you have to really weigh those two things. Think about the style of music you're playing, doing a lot of open stuff, a lot of jazz, doing a lot of short consecutive notes if you're playing metal. Are you doing a lot of studio work? Really kind of think about those kind of two sides of the coin and which sound might work best for you. I am putting out other comparison videos all the time for drum heads and cymbals and looking at sticks and such. So if you don't want to miss out, then hit subscribe right over here or down below. And while you're waiting, check out this video.